morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you'll be tuning in from. My name is Musonda Lamba Milapo, and this is AMR Unplugged. This morning, I have yet another guest. Sitting next to me is Olen Hamatanga. I will allow him to give a brief introduction of himself as we start the conversation. Olen, welcome.
Thank you.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite interesting. I think the
Mm.
last time we ever had a similar conversation of this sort is last year.
Oh, yes,
I can
last
safely
year.
say it's some months ago.
Okay,
So,
but
in a nutshell, like alluded to, I'm Olen Hamatanga, and I'm the Youth Engagement Lead for React Africa. Been around for quite some time, and it's good to be here.
okay, welcome. I'm curious. In today's conversation, we will be talking about youth and all things youth in relation to antimicrobial resistance. I remember when I first heard about antimicrobial resistance, I really could associate the feeling of feeling overwhelmed, and in a sense of that I'd never heard of the concept before, yet alone what it is and what it does, its consequences and all of those things. And so I'm very interested to know, when was the first time you heard about antimicrobial resistance? What feelings do you associate with that moment? And yeah, just all roundly, when was that time?
Okay, interesting. And it suffices to mention that I first came into contact with the word antimicrobial resistance in 2022, and this was on a project I was on. The project was being implemented by Eden University School of Pharmacy and funded by ICAS. So I was used to working in the background, just managing the files. And this every time the conversation was ongoing, because the project was centered on management of UTIs, urinary tract infections among pregnant women in Zambia. So with a specific focus on AMR. So it was a bigger piece in the room that I felt I couldn't carry. But over time, I became comfortable just reading through the reports before they're submitted to the funders. And that's how I got to know them.
All right, that's good. It's good that you got to the point of where you understood what antimicrobial resistance is. But as young people, we are both youths. As young people, do you think young people rather, do you think they know antimicrobial resistance? How do you think they perceive this public health threat? Do you think they think that it's relevant?
Talking of young people, with the little experience I've had interacting with them, both at tertiary level and lower grades, that is primary school level, as well as the community itself, is that they mostly do not understand it as a global threat, as a public health threat. Maybe the reason is it's not really covered in the curricula in most cases. And they look at AMR as being this bigger giant in the room that brings together public health policy leaders, at national level, and this spans to their inclusion in the discussion around AMR.
So then I would then want to know from from your perception or perspective rather, how then would we make it a relevant topic for them, a relevant issue for them, given basically what you've just said about how they think it's more like this abstract phenomenon. How would we make it relatable?
Yeah, so making AMR relatable starts with one single step. I always have this discussion around how do you make it relatable? How do you make it more familiar among the youth population? Yes, we are talking of a population of 60% of Africa's population being composed of young people, ourselves. And how then do we onboard these young people? We need to make the subject matter come home. Okay, it's not an aspect of going into the statistics about 39 million would die by 2050. This is a conversation that bores the young people. So make it come home, bring it home. And how do you bring it home? Let's have real conversations on what are the dangers of buying over the counter medication. What are the dangers of improper disposal of these antimicrobials, and just how are these community practices of sharing medicine can affect a population?
So In public health, challenges such as HIV and AIDS, malaria, sexual reproductive health, those types of challenges, some are diseases, right? They have powerful youth-led initiatives. And we have seen over the years how youth have been able to carry these challenges, communicate powerfully around them, and also influence behavior change amongst their peers, and also trickling down to the whole of communities. All communities, basically. So my question would be, for antimicrobial resistance, what sort of youth-led initiatives are currently being implemented?
Right. Thank you so much once again for that question. Quite very elaborate, but I, I feel one of the challenges that we have around AMR is it not having a face of its own, and the good start to avert such a circumstance is to make sure that we have a face of its own, even as we look at onboarding some of these initiatives. Some of the initiatives that have been deployed and are acted in full force, for instance, there's a React flagship program known as the AMR Leadership Program that is tailored and focusing on tertiary level students, where they are mentored for a period of about 6 months. Rigorous process of assignments, change projects. They end up doing even social media campaign of some sort, just to make sure that they're well equipped. Other initiatives include capacity building that are targeted at specific professions. I'll give an example of the collaboration that React Africa recently had with the Egyptian Drug Authority, as well as the Egyptian WHO country office, where they targeted pharmacists in their final year of study by way of introducing an antimicrobial stewardship in its original sense, the principles, the elements of AMS, and their role at facility level, which in a sense builds on their impact when they start their actual practice. Some of the innovative ways as well that have been introduced as initiatives is one, there's the introduction of an AMR card game. I don't know how well you are aligned to it. I believe you are part and parcel of the team that came up with this initiative, where we adopted the 30 seconds game into an AMR word game. And this is meant to build capacity by highlighting keywords that are relatable in the context of AMR. And this has proven to be very effective in capacity building. Aside that, there are also trivia sessions that are aimed at learners trying to showcase their retention levels of the knowledge that they would have gained in the process of capacity building. Yeah.
Yeah, great initiatives that you have highlighted there. And I'm thinking social media, something that is also easily accessible to many young people on the African continent and beyond. So my next question would really just be, how can social media and these digital platforms help young people to better advocate for the responsible use of antibiotics?
Yeah. So social media is something that can be used at a large scale by way of creating a whole page that advocates for prudent use of these and microbial drugs, disposal, and also community awareness just in general. But at a personal level, in everyone who has a social media account is mandated. They have a duty to post um, um, once in a while MR messaging, IC material. There are a lot of them that have been developed by entities such as React Africa, WHO, and we see them oftentimes during World and Microbial Awareness Week. But this should be a thing of the past. Let's see these messages being done from time and again, every week, every month, every quarter being posted. The other way social media can be used is to run hashtag social media campaigns that are targeted at raising awareness on and microbial use, health-seeking behaviors. People shouldn't just access drugs without them having seen a qualified medical professional for them to be told what really is wrong, so that they're given the correct medication. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And so you were talking earlier on about your experience in the universities and schools and all of these things. I believe this is work that React Africa is actively doing on ground. And so, how can schools, governments, and other professionals better support youth engagement in antimicrobial resistance? Because there's also that disconnect sometimes that there's the youth who's highly passionate, who can, if better supported, come up with these initiatives like you have rightfully put it. But how can they get support, for these engagements?
Okay, so the different structural support systems that have been created, not only by React Africa, but also by other leading agencies such as World Health Organization, AMREF, and also FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization. One of which includes, but not limited to the following. One has to do with the formation of One Health clubs. These are clubs that are institutionalized within learning institutions that support the discussion on AMR. Though they have interactive sessions, they do capacity building, and they reach a point of confidence where they can champion AMR advocacy at community level and also at national level. And this has helped integrating them into the national structures in combating AMR. The other component has to do with contributing to the discourse of the status quo. How is this being done? React Africa supports countries in coming up with initiatives such as national AMR debates, where youths are given a privilege to appeal to policymakers on what they feel can be the right trajectory to take, in as much as combating AMR is concerned. The other initiatives have to do with how now to structure impact driven or if evidence driven decision making on how they can be included to the status quo. This includes templates that have been shared by WHO through the Youth Engagement Toolkit, where there are templates on how you can do a social media campaign, templates on how you can monitor and evaluate youth-led initiatives, and most importantly, how you can now look at the impact and the outcome assessment of these different initiatives. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant response, Olen. Thank you so much for that response. And um, it really underscores the importance of youth engagement, really. And React Africa, I know for sure because I also work at React Africa. But yeah, I know that React Africa holds the youth, to high esteem, and we at React Africa feel that the voice of the youth, is one that is very powerful. But I want to hear from your opinion, in your view, what do you think makes the voice of the youth particularly powerful in our, our efforts against antimicrobial resistance?
So I always smile when I'm encountered with this question, because this is a question that in my current role comes almost every other time when I have an engagement, both within the organization and outside. I love answering it and giving a broader sense of a response in this context. Number one, youths have got the energy. Number two, youths are innovative. And most importantly, youth have got the influence. 60% of the composition for our population as Africa is not a joke. And the second point is, you know, we are talking about youths being the future of tomorrow. And to me, my tomorrow begins the next second from now. So these young people, if they engage quite early, let it be at primary school level, at tertiary level, what it means is that we are training the future workforce to become prudent prescribers, to become very meticulous in the way they dispense these drugs as either pharmacists, and also the way they carry out their processes. I understand one of the bigger problems we have as a continent is systems around access to antibiotics themselves. So, in as much as there will be an aspect of those limitations, somebody who's been trained through this, equipped adequately, they'll be able to make that proper judgment, even amidst challenges of shortage in diagnostics and all that. So, it is a future workforce we're dealing with. And for me, that's a passion.
Okay. That's a good response as well. I couldn't help myself but smile when you were listing out and you said number one, number two. It reminded me of the debates that we support, ZMPHI. in implementing. And there's one debater, a very passionate debater, that starts by saying number one. So the whole time you were speaking, I took me back to that moment. And
Interesting.
yeah, very, very funny, actually.
Yeah.
It's just we can't laugh on this platform
Yeah.
to that extent. So you've said a lot. And if I were a young person listening to this conversation right now, and I'm thinking, hey, I want to be part of this conversation on antimicrobial resistance, what would you tell them is the first step? And you can actually look into the camera and address that one young person who's burning with passion and wanting to join the fight, even though I don't like that word, the fight, but the fight against antimicrobial resistance. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll fine tune the word that you don't like, and I'll tailor it to mitigate. Yeah. So in a manner in which you're trying to mitigate or become part and parcel of the bigger group that are rallying behind the mitigation strategies of AMR as a youth, the first thing that you have to consider is that you cannot deliver what you don't have. So the first step always is learn all you can. And there are different platforms and different materials. There's the Youth Engagement Toolkit by WHO. There's a Youth Impact Report by React Africa. There's the One Health approach methodology that React Africa developed. And there's also a validation protocol that React Africa is working on. And I think they should be sharing it with the stakeholders on how the Youth Engagement Toolkit can now be made more practical, because the toolkit in its sense has got broader strokes on how you can go about youth engagement, but trying to contextualize this particular engagement. And when that is done now, you move on to forming small, impactful youth-led initiatives. You can start with an association, maybe a club at a school level. You can utilize your social media platform. I can imagine, I always look and think at times to say, if we had 1,000 youths from Zambia, 1,000 youths from Zimbabwe, and all come together, say every month we'll be sending out 100 messages on AMR, I think the world can be a better place.
Wow. Okay. I like that. You ended it nicely. The world can be a better place if the youth come together to rally on antimicrobial resistance, or to mitigate antimicrobial resistance. I'm sure you can see I'm avoiding the word fight. However, we have come to the end of this conversation. I think it was a very good conversation. Thank you so much, Olen, for joining us on this seat and just giving us your insights, even in your role as youth lead here at React Africa. To our listeners, young people definitely are not just the future of tomorrow, but are, the leaders today even. And we at React Africa are very passionate about youth engagement, as Olen has already labored to discuss. And so we just want to say thank you for joining us and staying up to the end of this conversation. This has been AMR Unplugged, and I am Musonda Lamba Milapo, your host. Please make sure to follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and anywhere else you can find us. Of course, this episode will be posted on our YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe. Thank you.